Now, here's your host of the Truth Seekers Radio Show, Angeline Marie.
What about this assassination attempt, Tom? Do you think it was an inside job? Are you buying this patsy that I think they're putting?
No, I think this kid has no skill set. You know, he was speaking of weirdos, a weirdo and an outcast. He just wanted to go out in glory. I just think that Trump was doing so many rallies, nothing ever happened before. And I think they were just lax. I just think that they really didn't communicate with the locals. It was dereliction of duty. It was incompetence. It was unconscionable. Believe me, Kennedy found out. If they want to assassinate you, they do it. And they'll have a patsy and they'll set it up. But this kid, I mean, if you had a true marksman, they wouldn't have just grazed his earlobe. I mean, that bullet would have been in his brain and he would have been dead. I just can't go along with conspiracy theories with someone that really just didn't have the competency and didn't have the skill set to, and he almost did though. They would have had a better marksman up there if it was being orchestrated.
Well, there were some questionable ties to this gun club he belonged to and the people and organizations like Department of Homeland Security people that attend there. And I don't know, there was some weird stuff in his background. I honestly think there probably was somebody else shooting. I don't know that he would have been the only one. And all of the what's that lady they were questioning on the committee hearings for the Secret Service. What a nightmare that was. I mean, she wasn't answering any questions.
Yeah, that was a terrible hire, of course. And Dan Bongino, being a former Secret Service agent, he's given a lot of his expert, opinion. I don't listen to his show that much, but I know that, the people can go back and see what, Bongino had to say. It worked for Trump's advantage, but then Trump always has a way to screw things up. All of a sudden he gets momentum. You think, he's going to deliver a unity message. The Republican National Convention, Laura Trump did a fantastic job of what she put together there. Everything was set up for Trump to just take this thing all the way to the finish line. And what does he do? He goes back to his old grievances, stolen election, this and that. And now he says he's going to let all hell break loose with his attacks on Harris. Every time he attacks her, especially being a woman or woman of color, it makes him look like a bully. It makes him look like people just are reminded why they don't like this guy, his personality. Was his policies good? Yes, but you have to remember there's not an original thought in Trump's head. There's not an original policy that Trump put together. All this came from many, many people, maybe yours included, Chuck Harder, Ross Perot, Pat Buchanan, Michael Savage, and various others, Rand Paul. And so there's many, many people that have talked about a lot of these issues and potential policies. And so all Trump had to do, because he doesn't read, sort of like Bush Jr., he just basically just put together this from talk radio. And then he said, I'll just be a shock jock, and that'll be good enough. Well, his shock jock tactics are not working now. They're backfiring. And I know a lot of what I'm saying, a lot of MAGA people are going to go, You're disloyal to Donald Trump. No, I'm loyal to the Constitution, schmuck. I'm loyal to putting America first, and it doesn't take a person, one single person, to do that. And I'm also not a big fan of the Supreme Court saying, let's just give immunity to any official action. No, you can't give almost absolute immunity to any official act. What if a president, just like when Bush and Cheney knew that there were not weapons of mass destruction and decided to carry a war on false assumptions, he should have been prosecuted for that. So, no, you don't give a blanket immunity for what a president could say, well, that was my official duty. So this is a terrible ruling. And is it all lawfare? And did Trump do nothing and everything's a perfect call and everything's a perfect this and a perfect that? No, this guy violated many laws. Now, not everybody gets prosecuted for them. You could say, yes, selective prosecution. But Trump gets on phone calls and says things that puts himself in legal jeopardy. He says things on Truth Social and wonders why everything's on a silver platter to be prosecuted for. Yes, he's a womanizer. He's been with porn stars. How about his connection, just like Bill Clinton, with Epstein? They said he visited that mansion in New York City multiple times. What do you think he was doing there? So if it wasn't for Bill Clinton, I think that a lot more would come out about Trump and his relationship, and their pictures show it too, and there's no doubt about it, with his friendship and whatever he was doing at the Epstein mansion.
How do you think Kennedy is going to fare in this election?
Well, I like him. I don't agree with all his policies, sort of like a Tulsi Gabbard. And Tulsi Gabbard knew how to dismantle Harris in debates. She did a great job, and that's why I think Fox News hired her, although she's still somewhat liberal in many ways. As my protest vote, I think I'm going to have to vote for him because he does want to get to the bottom of what happened to his father and his uncle. He's never wavered on the dangers of many of the vaccines. He's never wavered on certain issues that do relate to patriotism. I don't agree with everything he's had to say, but I think I'm going to have to go that route. I mean, before Trump, I voted against Republicans and Democrats. I wasn't wedded, to just the Republican rhetoric. If people realize, going back to what America First was, building up to Trump, there were very few talk show hosts that were protectionist, that were America Firsters, that were for only fair trade, not free trade. If you look at Rush, Hannity, Levin, Beck, and many others, they were all for free trade. They were all for supporting the Republican Party no matter what. Savage took issue with this, Laura Ingraham to some degree, but almost all the others fell in line. Many of them were never Trumpers. Many of them fought Trump because they wanted Ted Cruz and others. And then they finally just capitulated and said, oh, we're now a Trumper. You can't trust them. And when Fox News got sued by Dominion, a voting machine company, and they were able to get the text messages around J6, they realized that, and I said this all along, the hypocrisy and the fact that it is a show that they put on at Fox, just like they do at CNN and MSNBC on the other side. Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and other hosts, they were communicating. They're saying, what are we going to do? We can't lose the MAGA crowd. So what are we going to say on the air? So they have their public persona and the ratings part of them, and then their private conversations. And, of course, Tucker Carlson, it came out, even fairly recently, said he hated Trump. Trump was a demon. And so you got J.D. Vance put into this position by the Tucker Carlson, who and J.D. Vance both despise Trump privately. How's Trump so oblivious to the fact that these people didn't truly change and love him now?
I don't understand it. So then what do you think, if Harris gets in, then what do you think the 2028 election, who do you think the Republicans will pull out of their hat for that election? Well,
if Trump and Vance go down, Vance is going to try, but then DeSantis has a much better chance of beating him. If Trump becomes president again and Vance is the VP, they're going to try to squash any opposition, and so we would never get a DeSantis administration. So my thinking is that DeSantis has a provable record, and he has no skeletons in his closet, and he's a good man and good family, and so that Florida record he has is just phenomenal. I mean, how about when Trump lied about that record? Just fabricated things that were completely untrue. And so the DeSantis campaign just said they had a reel that went on for almost an hour of all the good things Trump said and all the accomplishments that he was proud of DeSantis for that countered all the lies, the Trump lies about DeSantis. So that's my hope, is that DeSantis in 28. I wish it was sooner.
I've even heard in some of the alternative media rumblings of General Michael Flynn one day running.
Yeah, I heard that nonsense. He has no chance. He has no, he's laughable. And I remember hearing, whether it be John B. Wells or others, they sometimes will go along with these conspiracy theories because it's good for ratings. And, they don't want to offend anybody that's part of their clique. But, there's this rumor that even this election cycle, Flynn was going to be they were talking about pairing him with RFK or somebody else, and it's just some nonsense, just ridiculous stuff about solid evidence and doing our homework and our research. And so many of these guys, it's about ratings. It's putting on a show. My podcast or my streaming show has never been about let me just simply entertain and put on a performance. Yeah, am I a little bit more hyped up, a little bit more animated? Yes, but every word I say, I mean, and I believe, and I feel I can back up.
I really thought the Democrats were going to dump Kamala before all this happened. But I think maybe the assassination attempt and all this that brought rise to more backing of Trump, even by people that didn't like him. I have a feeling that was all the Kamala plan was changed at the last second because they didn't know who they were going to put in. I mean, I had even heard they were thinking of Michelle Obama, possibly.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of thoughts that way. But, Biden is a crusty curmudgeon. He is a very stubborn guy, from what I understand. And so I think he said, yeah, if you really want, the pressure was on him, and they threw him out on that first debate because that was the test pilot. If he passed the test, then they were going to stick with him. But they pretty much knew from what they witnessed in the White House that he wasn't going that Trump was going to destroy him. And so then that's when their plan was activated, and they went full bore. And Biden was trying to resist, but the resistance became too strong. And so his way of still having a hook into the process was, even though I know he doesn't like Harris, I mean, there's, they were rarely ever seen together, but he just said, you know what, she's going to be beholden to me and she's going to have to say good things about me. And I'm still going to have some say. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to endorse Harris. So that was his power play, his last power play. And that's why we didn't get a Michelle Obama. That's why we didn't get a Gavin Newsom. But believe me, the Democrat establishment wanted somebody else than Harris. But they said, okay, we got to make the most of this. We can transfer all the money. We can get the first woman president, a woman of color. And then even Obama was hesitating. And then all of a sudden they said, this is our only pathway to stop Trump. And so that's it. It wasn't their first choice, but they're going to make the most of it.
Well, I don't like J.D. Vance's link to big pharma, big tech, big money. I really believe there's somewhere in his background is backing that leads all the way back to the Democrat Party, and that I really believe that in my heart of hearts.
So you don't have to say, but I'm already saying that I'm not. If Trump would have brought DeSantis on as VP, that would have changed my mind. If I would have seen a different Trump, where he learned some lessons from the attempted assassination, and he or even if it wasn't DeSantis, but it could have been another quality person, I might have been swayed. But now I can tell you, I don't care what Harris says or promises. I don't care what Trump does from here on out. They neither will have my vote. I'll go back to being the independent that I typically am. And unless some other option arises, it'll have to be RFK.